Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session of Quest, wherein we interview spiritual seekers from across the world. Let me begin with a small prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Sri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Bharati Karunapatram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamarudam Bharati Tirthamashraye Vidya Vinay Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvagyam Shri Vidushekara Bharati. Viewers, today we have a special guest joining us all the way from Vienna, Austria. His name is Sri Thomas Felber. Thomas ji, thank you very much for immediately agreeing for this interview and joining us today. To give a brief introduction of the speaker, Sri Thomas ji was born in Vienna in 1982, and he developed great interest, great thirst for knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, quite early from around age 8 or 9 itself. And he became first interested in the Eastern philosophical teachings, especially Indian teachings, from when he was in his teenager years, around 15, 16 years. And during that time, he was also initiated into Kriya Yoga and was blessed with a private conversation with Paramahamsa Hariharananda ji when the Swamiji had visited Austria. Later, he worked as a software engineer and CRM consultant for various companies. Between 2017 and 2019, he completed the 3-year course of Vedanta philosophy under directed by Swami Parthasarathy ji of Vedanta Academy. And after that, he has carried out a self-study of different Vedantic texts and teachings of masters like Swami Chinmayananda ji, Swami Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati ji, Sri Sri Satchidanandendra Saraswati ji. And he has also done a lot of translating of various texts into German. And he has taken many projects, and we'll be discussing some of them during today's interview for the propagation and dissemination of the philosophy of Adi Shankaracharya and the traditional Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. Since 2019, he has dedicated his life completely to to the spread, to the study and propagation of Advaita Vedanta. And since 2021, he is now a disciple of Swamini ji, Dr. Swatma Vidyananda ji, and he's working under her guidance. Thank you again, Thomas ji, for joining us today in this conversation. And so let me begin straight away with the question about, tell us about your early life, initial influences, and how did it all begin? How did your spiritual journey, so to speak, began?
First of all, thank you, Nithin ji, for the opportunity to speak on this auspicious platform. Thank you also to Swamini ji, Swatma Vidyananda ji, and also to Hari Kiran ji for this great chance. I would say to speak on a platform where I usually like a small drop compared to those great scholars and traditional teachers usually speak. For that, I'm really blessed and very deeply grateful for that. But before answering your question, also as many foreign speakers or some of them usually say, my English is average. I guess it's not native as a German. So I apologize for that too. I will try my best with Bhagavan's operating. And also I would like to start with another universal prayer before traditionally it's always regarding text, but also I guess regarding speech, starting with a Shanti or universal prayer. And yes, Om, Om Swastir, Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Now to your question. The spiritual journey, I have no idea when and how it happens exactly. It's already like almost like 20 or over 20 years ago. And according to Vedanta, it's easy to explain. It's all because of past tendencies. But in my case, at that time, and even earlier as a young boy, when I go very like around 7, 8, there was always a passion for reading and a thirst for knowledge, but not spirituality, not religious literature or any kind of knowledge. And there's a funny episode, I would say, and usually my mother still reminds me of that. When I was around 8, I always tried to become a medical doctor because I said, I want to help people. I want to heal them. And my family, in a Western culture, when parents hear something like becoming a doctor, they're usually like dancing around of joy because they see more income, I guess, more wealth, and all these kinds. So they were happy. But sooner or later, I had other ideas, and then. Of course, as a child and as a young teenager, there are a lot is going on in one's mind. And in school, one time I even want to come, like had ideas to become a police officer and all kinds of, quantum physics, like a scientist and studying the universe and so on. So ideas, I was never, to be honest, poor of ideas. So there was always an inspirational force inside me. But regarding to this episode of this helping people, that is something, and my mother used this also in like regularly. She said, I know you chose your another path and being involved in spiritual, especially in Indian philosophy or Advaita Vedanta, but this gift or this helping people or supporting people is what you have something inside you, and that's true. So throughout my journey, even as a teenager, I always tried to solve questions. And the thing about being a teenager, I don't know if, I guess it's globally, but in a Western culture, a normal teenager, I would say, in school, they are not interested in finding out the origin of the universe or what is reality and so on. So in that sense, I experienced a lot of pain also, a lot of being an outsider. I know exactly what how to be not in a being part of a big community. So that's also, when I look back, I was also blessed in that sense because I had more time to investigate more books, reading more books, and trying to find answers, and that helped me a lot. So when I read almost a book, like one book a week, and finding more, the more you read, the more usually the more questions spring up. And there was some affinity around 15 or 16 to infinite, like a affinity or some longing for infinity. So the concept of infinity, but not related to spirituality. It was just infinity. And then I start to question about, of course, about the universe, about the creation. Is the universe really infinite? And these small steps lead me, I guess, unconsciously, without being aware of spirituality at that time, slowly they lead me, these questions and these readings lead me to, I would say, because of Bhagavan or because of the past tendencies to spirituality. So nearby my college or high school, at that time there was a spiritual library or bookstore, and I cannot recall, I apologize, how it happened that I joined the bookstore, perhaps because of the thirst of knowledge. So I joined, I looked upon different books, and suddenly they had a lot of books, also all kind of different, not Eastern spirituality, but all about angels and New Age books and so on. But then I saw, like, I remember get Sri Ramana's books, or I guess one book about Sri Ramakrishna, and I looked at some pages, and there was, I was completely satisfied with even with some answers. And then this thirst started again, or become more intense. And slowly all these questions I had regarding infinity or the creation, I was even more inspired, more motivated to read about it. So I would say that was the turning point to spirituality. And then, of course, in Vienna, there is not at that time, around 1997, 1998. Also, no Google was a baby at that time, I remember, and the internet the same. So I tried to find at least companions in Vienna, or like friends, spiritual friends. But I wasn't. There was essentially nobody regarding Indian spirituality. So it was again, I have to it was a self journey, and luckily I find at that time one American doctor of philosophy. He's an ardent follower since decades of Meher Baba and Shirdi Sai Baba and Upasni Maharaj, and he's still a big friend. And I spoke with him a lot at that time, not over Skype, but I had to call him on the phone at expensive costs. That nowadays it's very easy, free. But at that time, I had to discuss this with my parents as well because of the phone costs. But they gave me some plenty time to speak regularly with Tom, with the professor, or with Dr. Thomas Hickey, and he said read some books by Meher Baba and so on, and also I read some of them, not all of them, and they step by step all of my questions became answered perfectly. But at that time, regarding Advaita or the term Vedanta or even Adi Shankara was not present, but perhaps appearing through other great saints and sages.
How did you meet Paramahamsa Hariharananda ji, and how was that experience?
Yes, of course, like as I said before, trying to find spiritual companions. I tried also I joined a yoga, there was still a Kriya Yoga organization in Austria, but not to find what is Kriya Yoga, just being with people who are on your side, like satsang, and not as soon as you start speaking about God and creation that people run away and are being scared. Oh my God, who is this weird man? So that was the plan. And then I joined like a Kriya Yoga initiation, I guess it's called. And I was initiated by a senior disciple of Europe, but he is, I guess he's still working for the Kriya Foundation. And I attended some classes, some meditation or some lessons by him, but I had also the feeling that is not the right path. Like Kriya Yoga is not really satisfying according to my way, I guess. But it also happened that I hear that Paramahamsa Hariharananda was about coming to Austria. And at that time, I even guess I had a book, or I read a book about him. So to me, it was like, wow, the first time like meeting a saint or a great Swami. And of course, luckily, at that time, I lived outside a little of the main area of Vienna. So, and I guess 1 or 2 miles away from where I lived with my parents, they opened the European or Austrian Kriya Yoga house or ashram. And he came, and I asked the disciples there if there's a possibility to have a private, or to see him at least, or have a dialogue. And they said, yes, of course. And I remember exactly that there was just, I guess, 5 or 4, we have around 5 disciples, and he and Paramahamsa, and sitting there almost alone in the room. And then I was standing very, like, I had so much respect. I even now, and then he made a hand sign that I should come near to him. And he said, please put your head or in my hands, or I guess remember. And then he closed my ears, or he literally put his fingers into my ears and said something like, do you hear something? And I don't understand the meaning, to be honest. And I said, yes, there is some bass tone, but I had no experience. I mean, I was thankful for that, and he was very friendly, of course, and very kind. And then I left. Perhaps there's some meaning behind, perhaps related to Om. I don't know, but to me it was purely like a blessing. Yeah, that's I will never forget. Hopefully, I will never forget this.
Wonderful, fascinating experience, Thomas J. So, but when did your proper introduction to Vedanta happen, and how did it happen? And did you meet Swami Parthasarathy ji personally, or
Uh,
you studied under his organization? Tell
yes.
us more about.
So then, after the spiritual, like, teenage time, I would say, there was I tried to fill the gap before to jumping to Vedanta. So then I became like a software engineer and lead almost like a worldly life, I would say, like fulfilling worldly duties. And but what is important, I always say to people when they ask me about spirituality or their relationship to God or Bhagavan, and even like being more worldly in that sense, and being a programmer, and like traveling and being also like engaged or being in a relationship, I never inside had the how can I say this? There was never a cut between Bhagavan and me. So as I used to say, is my everything and my best friends too, as the foundation where I daily walk, because this bond between him and me, as it were, according to Advaita, is never, it's always stable. So, and then also, and as a normal life, it's not only about beautiful experiences, but also painful experiences. And then by like 2017, I had also a lot of health issues, and my wife at that time, she said, I cannot walk anymore with you, so it's time to separate, because it was her desire. And she asked me if that is okay, and I said, if it is helpful towards your journey, whatever that is, then like just go if you want it. So we separated, And that was, of course, I cannot deny that was a painful experience. But as being religious since all time, I at least somehow I could manage the circumstances. But on the plus point was more time for Vedanta. So that yes, so that's then I don't know why I searched I had at that time a lot of books already, and I remembered it from my youth. But I tried on Google like finding more Vedantic teachers and becoming more involved. And then it happens that somehow I landed on Vedanta World or the Vedanta Academy by Swami Parthasarathy. And I saw like pretty high costs. So unfortunately, I didn't directly studied under him. I completely made the entire 3 years course, including there's some private recordings outside, which is not visible on the website. I guess are 100 more, but it really helps me, and that was the starting point also to getting like to the bottom, become more and more involved into real Vedantic study, I would say. And after that, I must say there are some guys who say Swami Parthasarathy is not even one senior disciple in England told me he's not really following in Sampradaya Parampara. However, I must also admit that as how he teaches Vedanta is very contemporary, not using so much Sanskrit terminology, and also because of his studies as a young man in English literature and reading a lot of poems and works, he's still a big inspiration towards a lot of things. So I cannot say anything wrong about him. He was really purposeful. And yes, as I said, unfortunately, there was never a direct contact, but with some senior disciple, I guess he's called Bashir Kara or some, not Bashir, Bash, I don't, he's in England now, the senior like teacher or disciple of him. And yeah, with him, I had some like dialogues. Also, I guess he wrote Swami Parthasarathy himself a letter, because at that time I also want to join not like coming to India and being there, but because of financial resources, it was not possible. So, and then after that, yeah, still not all answers. Like this motivation, this driving force was not like finished. So then I continued with a lot of Swami Chinmayananda's like lectures and books, and then Swami Dayananda ji, and also to a certain point, like this apartment here is like a library, so it's full, I guess, between 1,500 and 2,000 books about Vedanta. So there's also always plenty stuff to research. Yes, but I take it all as borrowed by Bhagavan to use towards the society. It's not that I have a possessorship in that sense. It's more being like a router and trying to like, these books are there, but they should have a purpose towards others from this standpoint now. And yeah.
Since this year you are currently furthering your studies under the guidance of Swamini Swatma Vidyananda ji, right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
She always foresees certain conditions in a mysterious way, and the only word I used to say about her is thank you. She's like a second mother, or perhaps the real mother, the only mother.
that
And yes,
that's very touching.
I used she's as so funny as Swami Dayananda's lectures, and I often say this to her, that she's like, humor should never should always have a place in Vedantic teachings, not only dry words and abstract, always like being alive, being dynamic, being humorous. And she perfectly can, like, at the same time teach Vedanta, and but always, like Swami Dayananda, put some humor into it, and I really laughed a lot. And when it comes to say thank you, she recently said, "No, do not like thank me, thank yourself." So then I thought, but thank myself. And I guess yesterday, as a compromise, I said, well, I don't say thank you or you thank me. It's we make a compromise saying thank you, Bhagavan, like thank the Lord. That's a compromise. So there's no you and me. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, Thomas ji. Moving further into the conversation, I have interacted with a lot of Western people who have found their spiritual home in India, so to speak, and I've also read a lot others who have written on their own personal journey. Coming from from a European or a Western culture rooted in basically a Christian culture at home, I have a lot of people have written and shared this, that there always comes a time, there is a dilemma between one's uh, own Christian upbringing, Abrahamic upbringing, and essentially a Hindu philosophy, whatever be the paths, be it Vedanta or any other path. There comes to a time when this dilemma, there's perhaps a mental conflict that needs to be overcome. This is a big obstacle, so to speak, that many Western disciples face. Did you face such a thing? And if yes, how did you cope up with that?
Like being the controversies between Vedanta or Hindu philosophy compared to Christians, or in that sense?
Yes, in a personal sense, in your own personal beliefs.
Yes, so basically I can, like, I'm pretty confident to say this out loud, because I don't shame myself for being like taught in a Christian family with values. And also my preschool, not high school, but preschool was a Christian preschool. So I was really taught as in a Christian environment. Also the family is still, they're all Christians. Um, like not radical or fundamental, in a fundamentalistic or very oxer or ox sorry um ox how's
Orthodox
that?
sense.
Yes, thank you. Not so strict, but still they value, of course, they regularly visit the mass and value Christian or the Bible or what Jesus said. But I, like, when I remember, and even now, like, I don't see this, I don't understand, to be honest, this conflict. And I often, like, being on Facebook since 2018, I guess, when I started with a page called Vedanta Quotations, and last year Teachings of Adi Shankara. There's always a regular, or sometimes there are comments like, these Christians or even Muslims, they don't understand. They like this Abrahamic religions. That's not Vedanta or so. There are, I guess, two issues to remember. That one side is the religion, but there's a core. I don't read the Quran, but I have, like, I've also, like, a lot of books about comparative mysticism, or the core of every religion or faith. And, like, I remember some, like, when Jesus said something like, I and the Father are one, is famous, or I can do nothing without my Father. Then it's all Advaita or Vedanta, but um, in a language suitable, I guess, for that time. So when people blame, like, being a Christian, or it's better not being a Christian and following, I don't know, another religion. That's, to my view, that's not helpful. It's not that like all religions lead to what Advaita is pointing towards, but I would say all religions at least teach to this like chitta suti, like the purification of, like they lead, it's like a kind of yoga. They lead, every religion is capable in terms of teaching values, empathy, compassion, kindness, to become adhikari basically. And from that, only like Advaita as a method is then like the final stage, I would say. So I don't see this, I don't understand, to be honest, and I do not share these views of these queries among even these Eastern Western discussions that sometimes I see when people say this is a Westerner, so you have like a time already, a stamp on your head. Being a Westerner is like being a fool, basically. I don't understand it. I mean, that what Advaita points out has nothing to do with any borders and any nations. It's the reality, what they indicated, and that's all parading. There is no country excluded, no belief excluded. But yes, of course, how you will, how oneself, or how the inner journey towards that ultimate reality, that's of course, I would say Vedanta is the only correct means. But religions, or different religions, have still are still valuable if they are lived correctly. If they misused, then it's not. It's like becoming asudi, not sudi like chitta sudi, but like an impure mind. So in that sense, yeah, that's
wonderfully put, Thomas ji. Uh, Moving further, I want to discuss a bit about your books and the work you are doing for the propagation of Adi Shankaracharya's teachings among especially among the German masses, right? So you have written a lot of books, and one that two or three that caught my attention was this Vedanta lexicon, the terms, categories, and concepts. Tell us about this book. Does it follow traditional texts like Vedanta Paribhasha? Who are the target audience, and what is the purpose of the book? How did you consider it?
the purpose was, I tried to find even now as many as texts as possible which are not translated to German, and I tried to find at that time just simply a dictionary of Vedantic terms, but I didn't find, or not in that like, I guess there's one small book, but I always try to think to put as much as possible into one book, so that it's not like Vedanta Paribasis. It's simply a dictionary of Vedantic terms translated to German, and the purpose behind this, it should, yeah, when people read or translations, they should like take it as a handy reference manual and look up terms. Yeah, that was it's not a more a nyaya text or something like that. It's simply a dictionary.
How much time did you take to compile this so many lexicon?
This only this one book.
Yeah,
I guess I'm a few weeks, perhaps, not more.
oh, wonderful. But I think the 8 volume set, Concordance of Adi Shankar, I think that would have taken a lot more time, since it is. So I have downloaded the 8 volume set, and it is simply amazing. So tell us about this project, and what made you take it up, and how did you go about this?
The same reason. I tried to find something similar, but there wasn't some similar work. There was, I guess, Bloomfield's Vedic Concordance, then A. Colonel Jacobs' Upanishad, I guess, concordance, like a word index. And this, I guess, these two books inspired me to compile it, yeah, regarding Prasthana Trayi Bhashya, without the Prakana Granthas and without the Stotrams and everything, just purely the Prasthana Trayi Bhashya. But it's that, yes, it was the intention. There is something missing here for society. So Bhagavan puts this idea, and so I will execute it in a sense.
But it must have taken you a lot of time because it's 8-volume set. It's not a small volume. Each volume is quite large.
Yes, but that's why everything in life can be purposeful. Because as a software engineer and being like years without being working for companies, still there is some ability how to write programs. So in that sense, I wrote a whole program to, of course, to assist me and to compile it, because manually, I guess I would have need like years. And I saved this program also for future concordances like Suraswaras, Bhartikam would be very interesting, but also the 100, like the Shruti, but more than the Mukhya Upanishads, also trying to use all 108 according to the Muktika.
Yeah, the Muktika canon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, of course. So that's why every ability someone like, I'm sure every being on this planet has certain talents and abilities. And sometimes even I thought about myself often why I became a software engineer, because I had also the idea to become a priest as a teenager, or like joining a monastery. But my parents say, no, please, you must earn money. So, but also programming, like I was fascinated by being like studying and basically all self-studying. Before I learned it at school, I already like had some pre-knowledge, because I was like interested in knowledge generally, and nothing is purposeless. So that's why it was very helpful regarding this compiling the 8 volumes.
You have also, apart from this concordance and lexicons, you have also actually translated the primary Upanishads and texts like Brahma Sutras and Mandukya Karika, Bhagavad Gita into German. So, what were the challenges? Some of the challenges that you faced by this translation, because these are all shastric texts, a technical text with technical Sanskrit language, and it's very difficult to translate for these concepts which are highly technical. So, and so what were some of the challenges you faced, and again, what made you take up this mammoth task?
It's sorry, I have to continue it for the third time, but it was because on the German book market there's not something like that or similar to that. So I thought that would be nice to that was the initial idea.
So there was no translation of any Vedantic text before you did in Germany?
There are, but not, they are scattered. They are like Atma Bodha or Tattva Bodha or Sarva Vedanta, how is it called? Sarva Vedanta, Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta, Sara Samgraha. Yes, this 1006 shlokas. So also I translated this too, but it's freely available and not as a book form. And the reason was, and that applies also to the other German translation. The reason was I I also read German translations, and in between there is a lot of Christian terminology, like God is frequently used, and so it to me it appears like if you make it too more in a not I do not devalue Christianity, of course not. But if you make write a Vedantic or translate a Vedantic text more in a Christian way, then people in German, like Germans, or those who are capable of speaking German, they perhaps have a wrong view about Vedanta. So they think perhaps it's another religion or another faith I have to follow. And that's why I try to use other words for the translations. That's,
I think that it would have been a very challenging project, especially considering uh, trying to avoid this Christian bias that you mentioned.
yes, it's like God is frequently, like, of course God, but God is just a three-letter word, but uh, like books were written about God, or it's possible to write 10,000 pages about God alone. So God, that's why in that sense, what I usually do is when I translate something like Nirguna Brahman or Saguna or some technical, I make parentheses and give a little extra that like a not hint like a some short word, or to at least that people can see that there's some deeper meaning, and try to bypass Christian terminology, but not to bypass Christians, but that people understand what's the main purpose or the sole aim of Vedanta is.
For a better, proper representation, more clear representation of Vedanta philosophy. I can put it that way, right?
Yes, I'm thankful for like formulating it in a better way. Yes.
How has been the response to this translations within the Germany in Germany after your publication?
I've like according to the publisher, every author gets like I guess every 3 months it's like a summary of how many books were like, about all the numbers and the amount. So it was pretty small, and it became even smaller, and the amount is like almost non-existent. But I have to accept it, of course. And also what is important to me, and I guess I don't know if the teacher said it one time or I thought about it, if there's at least one person in this entire apparent universe and you can completely support him, that's enough. So, and still, like if is at least one person and these books are helpful, I fulfilled the mission already, and that's a kind of joy. But what the few, I don't know. I mean, it's also a self. These books, of course, are also about self. It's not about, of course, my main purport is always the society. I don't know where this comes from, but that's my inner longing to support. But when translating, there's also a self like mananam, and it's also helpful towards my journey. And it's beautiful in both sides, on both sides.
That's wonderful, Thomas ji. Uh, we are almost coming to end of the session. I have just one or two more questions that
Yes.
I want to ask. How do you think as a Western disciple of Adi Shankaracharya and his teachings? So, what do you see is the uh, place of Vedanta and the place of Shankaracharya's teachings in current world? How do you think it could help, especially the problems that the world is facing, and issues that are perhaps certain issues which are very unique to the Western society, the European society?
The I like the title of The Quest of Thomas Felber, I guess it's the title. So to use this quest word or this expression, Vedanta in modern times, it's like about the quest towards oneself, regardless of any faith. And what people should try to understand is, as many great teachers said, and Adi Shankara too, that Vedanta or Vedanta is as a pramana. I used to say it's like a compass or an instrument towards that nameless, all-pervading reality. And if people at least try to understand that Vedanta is not really a religion, because the term religion and faith, people, especially in the West, tend to move away. They being more atheists, or they think there is no God, and we purely enjoy our wealth and what's going on. But that's not a faith. It's an instrument towards that what cannot be expressed. But this mindset must dawn. And then there's also no denial when people say, there are some people say, when Adi Shankara said Maya, all like this, there's this illusion. This is an English translation I cannot share, because illusion would mean that I can directly fly through walls, or I don't know, being a Superman, because everything is illusion. To me, illusion, the better translating is apparent misunderstanding or wrong understanding, the avidya. And Maya is also, because of self-ignorance, there is something like Maya. But this apparent reality is not a pure illusion. It's helpful, and it's just a wrong view, because the reality already is, but not what people think it is. So in challenging contemporary things like tensions between countries, tensions like starting in a family up to cultures, Vedanta, I guess, there should be a mindset or a remembering that the main intention is Vedanta is the quest towards oneself, not to the ego or to this ego notion, but who I am truly. And if that is somehow like becoming fixed in one's mind, then people can share to see beyond beliefs, and less tensions, and perhaps more adhikaris, more qualified students. So teachers will be happier, or they can support more people.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah.
I don't know if I everything else. There's some automatically speaking when I start, so I apologize for that.
So, any final comments, suggestions that you have for the Western seekers of Vedanta, especially who are looking for uh, deeper answers to deeper questions in life?
Yes, that like if the term when like using the term Westerners, I cannot speak for all Westerners. There are always exceptions. I guess they're also very religious and kind Westerners. So it's not that all Westerners are purely materialistic and selfish. But I would say the majority, they should, because unconsciously many of them are just they're not happy, and people usually say, of course I'm happy, but it's not about being temporary. It's about being, I guess, this permanent, not happiness, but this permanent being complete with oneself, as Puja Swami Dayananda Ji wonderfully, like regularly also taught, this whole with oneself. That's something people should becoming more aware of it. And because in the Western society, like psychological and mental issues are like an explosion, and that's why so many like divorce and family tensions and like many different ranges and bad things, so to speak, happen. So when there is an awareness that Vedanta is exactly used as the perfect instrument towards oneself primarily, and then I guess people can challenge not only their self, like their wrong self-understanding, but also being more empathic or open towards other people, towards other cultures. And that's, in Milton's words, I guess, the heaven on earth would be.
Wonderfully put. I can't help but notice. I mean, I think that would be my last question. That you have very beautiful paintings of Bhagwan Shiva on your walls. I can see it from here.
This is like a yes, like a puja. How is it called? Puja,
Yes,
like
yes,
meditation. Yeah, kiva. Yeah.
yeah. So that was my question. I wanted to ask. In Vedanta, it is said that devotion, bhakti, and puja and dhyana, they are means for chitta shuddhi and and purifying the mind and strengthening the mind in ekagra chitta. So, do you also do certain kind of personal sadhana that you do every day apart from the Vedantic study?
Yes, but not in that intense. I guess I should. But like praying is definitely, like morning and evening prayers are like sadhana. But I also consider sadhana being involved with Shastra. That's also sadhana, like translating and being involved with this text is, I consider it as sadhana. It's not a physical sadhana, it's more a mental sadhana. But basically, it's about mental sadhana. Um, so in that sense, it's almost the entire day. But regarding asanas and dhyana and all this, that's not in that sense.
It was wonderful talking to you, Thomas G. We had a very interesting, very insightful conversations. And on the behalf of entire Advaita Academy and all our viewers, I again thank you for agreeing to do this interview. And I wish you all the best on your journey and your future work. And I personally will look forward to your work and more books that would come from your side. So with this, viewers, we come to the conclusion of yet another session of Quest, and we will soon be bringing you more and more sessions. Shri Guru Bhyo Namah.